grab themselves a drink or whatever. I know we're waiting for some food, but we got to get her going at some point. So about 10 minutes, finish ordering that drink, and we'll start the program. And just a reminder, anybody's interested, we do have State of the Snowpack 5-panel hats for touring or toques. You can come talk to us up here if you're interested in supporting the brand. So let us know.
And tomorrow it's going to get freezing cold. So I hope all is doing well. We're going to kick off the evening. So, but first, we'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered on traditional, ancestral, unceded, on the Sinix peoples, Silk, and Kootenay peoples. We feel privileged and grateful to be here and honor on the ongoing presence of the Sinix on this land. We are mindful of how we carry ourselves today so as to demonstrate our intentions to honor this land, water, and all beings. So, just a little disclaimer. The information that we present is our own observations to the best of our ability. This presentation does not replace actual avalanche training. Sign up for an AST or a CAA course this winter. And what you do with the information we present is your responsibility. Use it responsibly. So what is State of the Snowpack? It's with saving lives in the backcountry. Our mission is to decrease backcountry avalanche incidents, casualties, and rescues through the sharing of detailed community-specific snowpack analysis. We want to bridge the gap between Avalanche Canada's regional avalanche forecast and local knowledge shared in the InfoX by guides and avalanche professionals, providing as local as it gets snowpack analysis in as clear and simple terms as possible. We want to share information gathered from our local guiding and forecasting communities, allowing locals to make the most informed decisions in the backcountry so we all make it home every night. And here's our board directors. So Morgan Dinsdale, she's the one that spearheaded this whole thing about 4 or 5 years ago? Was it 4 or 5 years ago? What are we at now? 5 years. This is year 5. And Morgan she's lives in Pemberton now and working for Whistler Heli. And really, we have a lot to thank for her, that she kind of saw that this was needed in the community and she wants to bring this to every single ski town. So her vision is beginning to blossom. We have it now running in Roslyn, Rebels, and then Nelson, which is the originator. So we have a lot of big thank yous from Morgan. Then we also have Judson Wright. He's going to be talking about a snowpack this evening. He's lead ACMG ski guide, and he's the owner and operator of Kootenay Backcountry Guides. And then we have Jason Wishlow, which is our whitewater forecaster, and has been a member of the board for a couple years, or the whole year, or 4 years, 5 years? Before it started. And then we have Kath behind the scenes, doing all of our admin, our marketing, running the website, doing the social media. Like, she's the one behind the scenes that makes everything run smoothly, corrects our grammar, and makes everything run really, really smoothly. We wouldn't have a really detailed kind of social media and all these presentations that we run without Kath. And then Scott Dinsdale is Morgan's father, and he kind of oversees and helps kind of figure out the gaps within the business side that us ski bums don't really know as well. And then let's give a big thank you to our sponsors. We are now gaining some sponsors to help us. We are a nonprofit. We do this all on volunteer, so having sponsors help us is a huge thing. We have Hub, Ballface came on board this year, same with Burden, the Savoy, and then Mountain Med Consulting. Huge thank you, and we always take more sponsorships, so jump on board. And then big thank you to our partners, Kootenay Backcountry Guides, She Shreds Mountain Ventures, Whitewater Ski Resort, and here, the Royal, for hosting us. And there's many ways to get involved too, to help us. Like, we're a community, and that's the whole thing with State of the Snowpack, is to have everyone having a voice and helping in any ways possible. So you can donate to us and help us keep bringing out a lot of useful information to everyone, so every penny counts. Make a personal donation to support our local snowpack field and events team. Become a sponsor and support the cause of bringing State of the Snowpack to every ski resort town across BC, and become a key member of the backcountry community and a contributor. Our regions cover an enormous amount of variable terrain. The more contributors from each pocket of BC, the better we can relay the snowpack conditions. And then we have a new website. Go check it out. Now you can find snowpack updates there, event schedules. You can get involved and contribute and become a sponsor or donate through www.stateofthesnowpack.com. And then just run through the Nelson event and contributor team. So you have myself. I've taken on this year, like Morgan stepped down, not necessarily stepped down, she's more overseeing all of the State of the Snowpacks. And then so I jumped in as the organizer and contributor for the Nelson events. And then we have Judson, who lead ACMG, Kootenay Backcountry Guides. Jason Wishlow, Whitewater forecaster. We have Julianne, who came on this year. She runs She Shreds sled adventures, so she kind of brings the snowmobile perspective of it. We have Kath doing the admin and marketing for us, and then Shane, who provides this beautiful live stream so people can see it online. And without Shane, none of us would know how to do this. So big thanks to Shane. So for tonight, we got Judson presenting about the snowpack. He's going to be filling us in with all the details. And then we got Jason Wishlow. He's going to talk about a recent avalanche that went on, and we'll be breaking it down. And then myself, I'm going to be talking about red flags. And I'm going to kind of throw myself out there where I'm going to talk about where I missed out reading on avalanche flags, and I'm going to share some personal avalanches that I've been into. And so I've never actually shown this before, so I'm kind of, showing a little bit of a soft side of myself, but I'm happy to share it so everyone can learn and grow from my own personal experiences, and I was lucky to come out of it. And so we have Judson Wright kicking off the snowpack. Do you want to go through all that? Or you want me to go through that?
Right on. Thank you, Wiggles. Thank you, the Royal. Right on. Thanks, Shane. Shout out to Shane. He's the unsung guy who's everybody who couldn't make it in tonight, because we actually turned away probably more people than are actually in here tonight. It's crazy. I was over at the door and people were trying to fight people to get inside, which is pretty crazy, right? It's amazing. It's amazing the support that we're getting with this event, and the amount of outreach and the amount of talk that people are getting here. It's amazing. It blows my mind every single time to see people come in here and talk about the snowpack. It's kind of mind-boggling. I feel amazing right now because the last time, who here was at the last event? Yeah, so I kind of did a bit of a state of the forest update. It was like kind of sad, right? And now people are stoked, right? Everybody's stoked because they all got the powder in their face, because that's what they like to do. They're like, powder in the face. It's all good. It's amazing, right? So yeah, winter is on. So we're going to talk about the current conditions of the snowpack for the region. Before I get any deeper, actually, I was thinking about another thing. So we have such an incredible education level in this community. I was looking around and I was like, man, so many of these people I noticed from my courses are out in the backcountry. So just a hand up for everyone who has a minimum level 1 or AST1 certification. Hand on up in here. Okay, how many folks are like legit new to ski touring this year? You're pretty new, you're getting in there. Okay, when I did one last year, it was like most of the crowd was new and people are just like leveling up. So let's go with the AST2s. How many AST2? Right on. Okay, and then how many avalanche professionals? Put your hands up for the avalanche professionals. All right, I got to look out for them. They're the ones who are going to call me on my bullshit. So you guys all close your eyes and don't listen to what I'm saying, okay? Right on. So notable storms and weather events. We're going to cover that. Notable layers, upcoming weather. I'm going to skip over that. We don't want to talk about it, right? Avalanche Canada Bulletin. Notable avalanche events. There's a couple of them, and Wishy's going to dive in there, and I'm going to share some thoughts on the goat slide. Okay, a couple thoughts on the goat slide. And then part 2, the goat slide incident presentation. So Wishy's going to come on in, dive on deep, share some latest and greatest, and then we're going to go over red flags with Wiggles. Wishy, can you please bring me my beer? Thank you, sir. Okay. Current state of the snowpack is winter is back, baby. That's where it's at. Bam! Everybody, finally happened. How many people last time were legit wondering if it was ever going to snow again? Like, be honest. Be honest. I was too. Last time I was like, is this it? Is it ever going to snow? And it did. It actually does it. It snows around here. So, be careful out there in the coming days. It is going to be cold, okay? No joking around with that. The good news is it looks like it's going to be warmer on Sunday, so the next 2 days are the worst. And then we're also, I'll get into it a bit, but it doesn't look like we're having an Arctic outflow. It looks like just an Arctic outbreak, and the difference is winds. So I'm not seeing a lot of wind in the forecast, which is good. And then also sun. So if there's sun, at least you can catch those rays while you freeze. Right on. So let's talk about the seasonal history and what we had. I bring up this chart at every state of the snowpack. It's kind of hard to see. It's getting a bit blurred. But this upper line up here at the top, that's the historical max. That's our biggest year ever. And last year, believe it or not, at the end of the year, we had one of our lowest ever. It got lowest ever. And the year before, this line actually went out, and this is actually 2 years ago, which is the biggest snowpack we ever had at that time of year. So we've gone through the biggest and the least in the last 2 years. And right now, where we're at is this is that black line, that sad black line is us. And sadly, we're actually, this is water content of the snowpack, right? This isn't the depth, it's water content, right? So it catches all water. But regardless, that big jump up in the water content, that's rain. So that big jump going up, that is rain. And that's unfortunate. And even with all that rain, we're still at historic lows of the amount of water content in our snowpack right now. So I have, which is kind of freaking me out a little bit, because I was here in 2001 and actually got a patroller to send me snow history of Whitewater for the last 20 years, because I remembered 2001 because it was so bad. And we actually finished that year with a 169 centimeter base. So there has been years that have been like what it was last time I was talking. They persisted through the year. And we just got a dump that actually filled us back up and has kind of given us a top up. And the coverage is better than in 2001 and probably 2005 as well. So cheers to that. This storm filled us up and we got to go shred. And it's all bonus time. We're living on bonus time right now. Right on. So keep that in the back of your mind that years like 2001 occur and they can be like what it was over Christmas and can persist for entire years. And my point about backcountry skiing is the reason that I think backcountry skiing is so incredible is that it isn't always amazing, right? Like if it was amazing all the time, we would just be like, oh yeah, just another powder day. But because we suffer through the shit, because we drive for 2 hours to get someplace, sometimes 3, 4, whatever, and it rains and the conditions are sucked for a whole ski trip, that's what makes the POW, when it happens, so fucking good, right? It's exactly why it's so good. So suffering is good. And the early season here was good because it made us appreciate, right? It made us appreciate how good it is out there right now. Yeah, it did. Yeah, that first day that I had in the POW, I was like, oh yeah, that's why I do this. Yeah, so notable storms and layers. So from late October, we got our first snow of the year, piddly. Some early keeners were out there skiing on Idaho Peak, getting their first turns. That was Wiggles. We got another dump November 7th, so there's another bit of snow on the ground. Then mid-November to December 1st was our first drought. So we had a drought, and there was about 70, 80 centimeters total sitting on the ground, droughting itself out. Then, on December 4th, this sticks, we had unprecedented rain. So we broke records for that storm, 140 millimeters in 72 hours. Tears were shed. People cried. And yeah, I told you this last time, but like looking back, you should go back and look at Wishy's first State of the Snowpack when it was raining. It is like the saddest. I've never seen a sadder man in my life than Wishy talking in a rainstorm with like a cat driving behind him. I was just like, oh my God, what are we doing? And then 40 centimeters fell on December 7th to cover that up. And it got kind of weird. And I talked about it last time about how weird it was because there was dry snow on top of the wet snow and there was surface hoar under it. And we were still having avalanches and weird stuff happening with the surface hoar, even though the lower snowpack was completely wet. And I couldn't figure it out because usually the surface hoar melts out. This surface hoar was super hoar and it didn't melt out for whatever reason. And then slowly it cooled down and a crust formed on top of it. And we haven't been getting a heck of a lot of stuff happening locally on that surface hoar layer, which was our big scary layer going on. And so now there is that crust, and this is what created that situation. And then after that, we got that 40 centimeters, and then this happened. So it turned into a desert. And I don't know if anybody went skiing, but this guy was out there hanging out, and that's what happened up until January 5th or 6th. There was just that dude. And it was like nothing. But during this spell, what would happen is we occasionally get some clear, sunny skies. There'd be a bit of surface hoar, and then Avalanche Canada would be like, it's going to snow. And it was like 3 days away, and then the storm would just get smaller and smaller, and it would snow like 5 or 7 or whatever, and nothing was happening. But when that happened, is that there was surface hoar that was getting buried, and it wasn't doing anything because it never got a load on it, okay? And then we also had a few different freezing rain events during this period where we're like, it's going to snow, freezing rain. And that's what happened. And so there's a bunch of layers in there that I actually haven't really seen too much of because they kept just getting covered by like 5 centimeters and not really popping off, okay? So this is an actual image of me on January 4th. That's how I was behaving, and that's how I felt on January 4th, okay? And this is where I was on January 4th. That is Rogers Pass. And it was a boneyard. It was absolutely terrifying. I went up into the Illecillewaet Valley, and I had a group, and I was guiding, and I actually just turned around and went home. That is what we did. We looked at this, and we turned around. So it wasn't any different anywhere else. Like, this is what was going on in BC, and everybody was in the same boat, and it just wasn't snowing except for in the north. So you just had to drive all the way up to the northwest where it was chucking tons and tons of snow. Greg, was it snowing up there? Okay, damn. I was hoping it actually didn't, but it did. We just confirmed it. Guy from the northwest told me it dumped up there. Okay, so the results of this drought. So intermittent snow in extended periods means there's surface hoar. These layers are mixed in the snowpack with various freezing rain crusts. The current snow is this is the first load that any of these layers have seen. And it's the first time these layers are reacting to a load in the snowpack. So we've been kind of on the like, okay, let's just ski mellow features. Let's hang out in the trees and the forest while these layers are dealing with. And they're hard to track because not many people were out in the mountains. Like, there weren't a lot of operations running during this period. There wasn't a lot of info getting shared. I wasn't doing a heck of a lot of ski touring. I kept going out and then getting to places and then sometimes not. But the problem during this whole extended period was anytime it was foggy in the Nelson Range, you were forced to go into below tree line, and it was not good. So I would go out, and if it was sunny, I had a good day, and then if not, it was like, okay, I'm stuck in these trees. And they weren't safe. They weren't safe. It wasn't good skiing, and it was kind of a mess out there. So pent-up frustrations that went on for these months meant that people were like this, right? This is what people were like. And so a lot of people have a lot of pressure because they've waited all year to get out there and shred and send it. And it's just like, let's go, you know? And I totally get that. So here we are, January 5th to 10th, and that's what it's like. That's what it's supposed to be like. Sometimes it's not, though, but this is what we work for, and this is what we wait for, and this is what you put the time in to get there. But during these storms, right, it means increased hazard, and then we just have to lower our terrain choices to compensate for this snow. And we go inbounds and we enjoy the new Raven chair, which obviously has made Whitewater absolutely amazing. There's barely any lineups in there. The new terrain is killer to ski, and it's just spread everybody out. So it's super awesome. So this is what you can do inbounds when you're not going touring and it's chucking and the hazard is through the roof. You got this new chair in this amazing ski resort to go play in. We are so privileged here, right? Right? There is the Whitewater snow report. That is more like it. 87 centimeters in 7 days, 46 in 3 days. One overnight. I don't like that one. I should have grabbed another image. But 154 centimeter base, so still not fat, right? It still don't have a super fat snowpack, but it's much improved. And if anyone who was out there yesterday, yeah, major change, right? Like yesterday was like, oh, whoa, okay, like we can go skiing again. Even the day before, I was kind of like, there's pow, but like maybe there's some. Then it got way better, but it's still not where it's like, okay, game on, we can just send everything. The number where you can start to mostly send everything is 200. It's 200. When it hits 200, you can pretty much send it all. That's when the alder disappears. That's when everything gets filled in the creeks. There's still a lot of open creeks out there. We'll get into that. Here's Red Mountain. Red Mountain has 100 centimeters. This is awesome for Red. Yeah, Roslyn, they were hurting bad, and now people are skiing in Roslyn, and Wiggles was there today. Wiggles, Roslyn, update. How was Roslyn? Thumbs up, thumbs. He had good skiing in Roslyn. Awesome. Kootenay Pass, I was there today. I was probing at 1,900 meters, and I was getting a consistent 170 centimeters. At highway elevation, 148. And yeah, so that's great. So, regional snowpack considerations. So this is kind of thinking about all over our region, right? It's pretty uniform. You go up north, you got 160 to 180 around here, same thing. There's not areas that have a heck of a lot less, except for the Roslyn range, but that's pretty standard. They get about 50% less snow than everywhere else, and that's just the way it is now. You go over into the southern Purcells, there's less snow there. But around here, locally, Kootenay range, up in the Goat range, everything, we're all sitting at that $150 to $180 tree line snowpack depth, okay? It tapers off a lot below 1,800 meters. I'm sure everybody's noticed that. There's a line when you're skiing, and it's about 150 to 200 meters above the lodge at Whitewater when all of a sudden it's like, oh, things are changing. And so whenever I hit that line right now, I'm just thinking, okay, dial everything back, and you're going to notice a lot more rocks, a lot more stumps, stuff like that in the creeks. That's at 1,800 meters. Above it, it grows quite rapidly. And when I get above 2,000 meters, so I was in Catuttle Creek, and this was actually right around New Year's. I was in Catuttle, and I was probing $150 in places, and that was before this storm. So there's going to be quite a bit more snow up there when you get above 2,000 up to 2,400. I bet you that there's 200 plus centimeters in some places. That being said, the winds have really been in effect too. So on south aspects, there's quite a bit less snow, and wind affected areas still quite a bit less. There we go. South aspects have the worst coverage, and you'll notice that on the Raven Chair, right? The Raven Chair has the worst coverage. South isn't the best right now. It's getting there, but it still doesn't have great coverage. And if you've seen the top of the Raven Chair, because they logged it and cut it, it's created like an artificial fetch of snow, and now there's almost no snow up there. And if you've tried to ski Lower Nugget this year, Godspeed. You probably are not in this room right now. Lower Nugget is a minefield. Okay, north and east aspects at Treeline, they're the best. That's where we want to be, and in the Alpine if we can for coverage. Okay, Alder's still a concern, but it's improving greatly. Okay, White Queen all of a sudden looks like you can ski it in places. But I did see lines down, and I was like, okay, you can start skiing it. The last time I was here, I was like, no one's making it out of White Queen alive, right? So yeah, in the north of the region, it's not all that much better than the south. Okay, notable layers. We've got rocks, tree stumps, and alder at the bottom. That's our first layer. Then we have basal facets and crusts, okay? So there's a bunch of basal facets, a bunch of crusts down there. And then we have the December 1st surface hoar. Above all that stuff, it's really only 30 to 40 centimeters off of the ground, this December 1st layer. And above it, we have what I call the December atmospheric river crust, okay? And in places, I've seen the December 1st surface hoar stuck to the bottom of that crust. So I've seen the surface hoar stuck on the bottom of the atmospheric river crust. In some places, I see it 5 to 10 below. So it totally depends. And this crust is super weird. In Catuttle Creek, I found it. It was about 20 centimeters thick, and you literally could barely shovel through it. It was so rock hard and solid. And then today I was at Kootenay Pass, and it was only 5 to 10, and it was pretty faceted out and weak. So this crust is not uniform, and in some places it's harder than others. And this crust, this atmospheric river crust, is guarding the December 1st surface hoar, right? So that layer is still there. This December 1st surface hoar is still there. It's still lurking. It's not going anywhere. It's just that the atmospheric crust is guarding it, and we're not talking about a guard like that's got, you know, an AK-47 gun. It's like in some places it's weak. So we can't just go around 100% trusting that this crust is guarding everything, because it might not be. And as it gets colder, the crust is maybe going to facet out, maybe get weaker. And so we can't just throw all our eggs in the basket that this crust is doing its work, because there's always anomalous situations. And so for me, when I think about this December 1st layer and I think about this crust, I'm like, where is it going to be weakest and worst? And that's in areas of lower snowpack, right? So low snowpack areas where it's faceted out, and smooth ground cover. It needs smooth ground cover. So then next we have various surface hoar and ice layers. So above that, there's a few different freezing rain crusts and ice layers. And then we have the current storm, which is this current storm that just wrapped up, and now we got the Arctic air here. So the most recent storm, which is about 70 centimeters. So we got about 70 total. And then there's wind slabs, and I didn't write the whole thing, but stellar crystals are in there, and that's the reactive layer that I'm finding currently in the snowpack. In the upper pack is this layer of stellars, and it's down 40 to 60 centimeters. I found it in tests today, and the other day I was finding it out there, and there was a couple avalanches. Mid-storm layer of stellars that's sitting in there. And anybody who wants to know what a stellar is, a stellar crystal is the beautiful, like, crystals that you would see in somebody's window depicting winter. They have a lot of arms and branches. They're usually big, and they look big and beautiful. And our problem in the snowpack, right, generally is larger crystals. So these stellars have been preserved because of the cold temps. They're sitting in there, and they're larger crystals, and they're creating a layer to slide on. Okay, so here's a profile that I dug in the other day, January 8th, in the fingers at 2,100 meters. And for those of you who are relatively new or not into this stuff, basically as we come over, as I move across, this is stronger snow. So the more that the snow goes this way, the stronger it is. And then the more that it's this way, the weaker it is. So there is our December 1st layer, weak with strong snow above it. So there's a slab sitting over it, weak layer, and then a bed surface of another layer sitting there. And then we have another big fat, this pencil snow that's nice and thick, strong pencil snow. And then I have this ice crust. This ice crust I'm calling the December 22nd. I was actually out there the day it got buried, so I know it's December 22nd. It's huge. And if you're in the Whitewater area and you dig down and you're seeing an ice lens that's about a centimeter to 2 centimeters thick, and it is ice, it's not actually melt freeze, it's actually ice. You pick it up and you're like, okay, I can see that it's like actual ice, not just little chunks and columns, right? That's that you can mark and be like, okay, that got buried on December 22nd. So then you can probe down and be like, oh, there's 80 centimeters since December 22nd. And it is the most prominent mid-pack crust. So the two prominent crusts in the snowpack are the atmospheric river and the December 22nd. And then there's another thin one that happened on like the 26th on Boxing Day or something. It's not really much of anything. But you do find it in some places. But particularly around Whitewater, that December 22nd crust is super prevalent. It caked trees with ice. It came in actually as an ice storm. It was pretty wild, and it's sitting there. And I have been getting test results on top of this December 22nd ice crust. So one of the main concerns we have in the avalanche world is anytime you get results on top of a crust. Yes, results on the bottom of a crust can count as well, but the worst thing is when it happens on a crust because you end up with a beautiful sliding layer with ball bearings on top of it. And I haven't had too many results on this atmospheric river crust, but on this one I have had the occasional result, and other people have been talking about that layer. So it just is one to keep in the back of the books when you dig down and look and check it out, that there may be facets sitting on top of it and it may act as a sliding layer. Okay, and then the upper pack is basically a bunch of fat pow. So this is just fat, cold smoke, and it's just sitting there and it's hitting you in the face, okay? So this is indicative of north aspects where the snow is deep. I've found a similar snowpack to Tuttle Creek as I did in Upper 5 Mile. And the December atmospheric crust, it varies in thickness across locations. December 1st is variable in terms of how it got affected by the rain. In this particular test, I did a deep tap test on this layer. So I dug down, I took away the whole top of the column, and I did some compression tests to test out the December 1st crust. And you can actually see, I showed it to folks. I made a State of the Snowpack video about this, so it's on the Instagram channel. You can check it out. And I pick up the bottom of the column after it failed, and the surface hoar was all stuck to the bottom. It failed suddenly, cracked across the whole column, wanted to slide. It was a clean, solid result. The reason it failed was I actually had isolated the crust, and so that acted as if the crust wasn't there, but regardless, the surface hoar was there, and so I still need to file that in the back of my mind that that's something that's there. The surface hoar was large, it's melted out and rounded, but because the crystals are so big, it was still failing suddenly and giving me a solid sudden collapse result, and that's been indicative of a lot of people's results on this layer. Okay, so occasionally I'm getting results on top of the crust. I just talk about it. And then the very bottom is a bunch of facets. And in some places they're pencil, but the facets I tested today, they were more like forefinger. So the facets at the bottom at Kootenay Pass, they were really soft. And I guarantee you in some places where it's thin, there's probably depth hoar at the bottom of the snowpack. It's not strong. It doesn't look very good at the bottom of the snowpack in shallow areas right now because it was so dry in places, and it just faceted out. And I don't know how it's going to react to this cold snap, but cold will just create more faceting. That's how it's going to go. Yeah. Yeah.
Was it still moist? Were those facets still moist, or had they finally dried up?
No.
Moist for a long
I haven't been finding moist snow at tree line and above for a while. I haven't dug down below tree line, so I don't know what's going on, but in both these pits, the snow was dry at the bottom. Yeah. So here's our danger rating. So this is what they're forecasting for tomorrow. They're calling considerable, moderate, low. That came out just this afternoon. And then moving forward Saturday, we don't really need to worry about this because no one's going to be skiing. So let's just focus in on Sunday when it's moderate, low. And that's the next time you can go skiing. Just kidding. I mean, if you do, like, this cold snap is for real. They're talking about potential minus 35. It's been a long time since I went skiing in minus 35. And I'm going to do it tomorrow. And I don't want to. Pray for me. So our problem number one is this storm slab. And they're saying give the recent snow time to stabilize. And extreme cold significantly increases the consequence of an incident in the backcountry. No kidding. Right? Imagine getting into a slide and think about when Wishy's giving his talk here and he talks about the incident on Goat Slide. Think about what that would mean in the extreme cold. I'm thinking even a blown knee, anything, ankle, whatever, is serious business at minus 30. I have a line of like minus 20. After minus 20, it's just like you got 15, 20 minutes to like stay warm. And for those of you who are looking for tips and strategies to stay warm, in the past I've partnered with Jill, who's here, who runs Mountain Med Consulting and run a backcountry rescue course. And we teach people how to stay warm in the backcountry, okay? It is a skill set. And Jill is going to be running one with Whitewater as well. And they're going to be doing companion rescue along with first aid. So it's like a new thing we're doing, which is combining these skill sets of first aid and backcountry rescue, and it's an awesome thing. And if you want to, yeah. So, yeah, right there. So, yeah, Jill. Yeah, first aid is real. It's a real skill. How many people here feel confident in their first aid? Hands up. You feel confident in first aid. We got all the patrollers, a few other. For me, my thing is, like, it's honestly, I've taken a lot of first aid in my life, but I haven't done much of it. So it's one of my things that I'm least confident actually in out there. My main thing with all of this stuff with first aid is basically learning how to deal with the big heavies and then learning how to deal with somebody who's hurt in the backcountry. What are you going to do? That's the question that's out there. And for me, whenever I'm doing training or rescues or whatever, it's like we practice this skill, and the skill we practice is getting somebody out from under the snow, right? We spend all this time how to mitigate, how to get somebody out from under the snow, how to use our transceivers. I tell people this in my courses all the time. That's the easy part. Seriously, the easy part is getting them out from under the snow, digging them. When you dig somebody up in the middle of the backcountry, you're in the bottom of 5 Mile Creek, wherever you are in Kootenay Pass, and somebody comes up from under the snow and they got a broken leg, and it's 2:30 p.m., that's way harder than getting the person out. You can use your transceiver to get there. You can use your probe. Those skills are practiced. But the actual rescue and what are you going to do? So if you're going to go out there in the next little while and it's minus 15, minus 20, I want everybody to be thinking, what am I going to do if something happens? How am I going to stay warm? Is it just going to be a puffy? What is my strategy? How am I going to do it? So anyway, a little bit of an aside there. So Avalanche Canada, train and travel advice. Give the new snow several days to settle before pushing into bigger terrain. Avoid freshly loaded features, especially near ridge crest rollovers and in steep terrain. So for me out there today, I did see quite a bit of wind effect. Anyone who was skiing that storm at Whitewater would know that there was a lot of wind. And so with that, I would say that there's probably a wind slab out there. Now, for a little bit of beta, Avalanche Canada doesn't give storm slabs and wind slabs at the same time in their forecast. It will either be a storm slab or a wind slab. They don't want to have too many problems So they just say we have a storm slab and it's worse on areas where it's loaded, okay? But right now, I would say that we likely have a storm slab. I'll just go out there and say it. We do have a storm slab and a wind slab out there. The winds were honking and they did blow. They've stopped now, so they have stopped. It wasn't windy out there today where I was. Did anyone out there feel a bunch of wind today? Yeah, it seemed to have died down, and let's just knock on wood that during this cold snap, those winds don't come up and, because, yeah, there's some good skiing potentially on some south aspects and stuff in the sun, maybe on Sunday or Monday. Yeah. So avalanche summary, there's been a mix of natural avalanches and explosive triggered have been reported. They occurred on a variety of aspects and elevation, size 1.5 to 2.5. And then they're saying talk about share stuff in the min reports. They're saying in the snowpack, we've already talked about it, about 70 centimeters of snow fell. It's on a crust in places, it's on surface hoar on others, and then there's a bunch of crusts and surface hoar, and then we got our deep one down at the bottom. Their confidence is moderate. Their uncertainty is due to how quickly the snowpack will recover and gain strength. I think especially in these cold temps, right? The cold temps mean the change is slower. So the colder it is, the slower the change is, right? So we will get bonding, we will get stabilizing within this storm, but because it's so cold, it's happening slower. Today it was just pure cold smoke where I was. It was nice and fast and cold, and then it'll probably slow down a bit tomorrow. Here's the weather forecast. Just close your eyes, don't look at this. There is a number of a minus 37 in there. The coldest I've seen it in my 25 years here of being in the mountains was minus 38. I've seen it get to minus 38. Let's see if it gets down below my own personal record that I've seen. Let's hope it doesn't. But anyway, not many people are going out in the next day here. The worst of it appears to be Friday afternoon into Friday night. And then Saturday day, it's warming back up. And then Sunday, we're into the minus 15s. So Sunday is totally back to normal. Let's knock on wood, back to normal. Minus 15 is ideal temps. I was out there today, minus 15, minus 16. It was ideal. That's what we want to have. It was actually perfect. We weren't sweating. We weren't cold. We weren't doing too much. And the POW was perfect. We want minus 15. So here's a little avalanche. We'll start getting into our avalanche activity here. This is one that I spotted in upper 5 Mile. So this was up above the fingers. Just a little guy, just a little storm slab. It was as you come up out of the fingers, you start going in, and there's that beautiful alpine. It's transitioning from tree line to alpine. Bunch of little rollovers in there, and someone had triggered one. I went and did a fracture line profile on this, and it failed on this stellar layer, and it was down 40 centimeters in the recent storm snow. Now here is an interesting one. My friend sent me this afternoon after I'd told him. We'd had a bit of a discussion about the December 1st, and I thought it wasn't going to be much of a player anymore, and he was pretty convinced it was. And then today in the Boningtons, he sent me this photo with a snarky comment, and they called it a storm slab, but I'm not convinced that it is. That's a big avalanche. So this was a size 3. This is in the Boningtons, east aspect. This hit the lake below and broke the ice. Okay? So this is out there, okay? And we're going to talk about it when you get to Wishy here. He's going to break down the goat slide one, not nearly as big as this. But if you get in close, you can see that multiple layers here have fractured. So this definitely stepped down. And then there's a huge, deep crown in here. This is pretty wild. I don't know if it's so deep that it was the December 1st, but we're all just guessing at this right now. And what's interesting too is you can see that it's wrapped around to the other side of the mountain. So to me, that's what persistent weak layers do. That's not what storm slabs do. Persistent weak layers travel around ridges. And so I'm suspect that that's a storm slab. You'd have to get in there to dig and have a look, but regardless, that's not far from here, and a size 3 went off and did that. And you can tell that there's terrain like this in the Nelson Range, there's terrain like this in the Kootenay Range. So there is a layer out there capable of doing this right now. And if it's a PWL, it ain't going anywhere in the next little while. That's all I got to say about that. This photo was today. Yeah. It looks pretty fresh and new. There's not much snow on it. I don't know. I don't actually know the exact location. I just got the aspect in size and elevation. So that's at like 2,200 meters in the Bonington Range, east aspect. What's that? No, not at Barrett. No, it was on the other side. So anyway, we'll move on. I do want to just have a bit of a pause to have a bit of like a real talk with people about traversing, because we're going to get into it with Wishy here. We're going to talk about it. It's all on everybody's mind. Anyone who's been at Whitewater, right? This meme says it all, right? This is it. Riding from the top, no one's taken it. Traversing 500 meters for 10 turns. I'm in. Let's go. But guess what? I'm not in. I don't like it. So let's talk about Goat Slide here. And so this has been a thing, and I know it's been eating at the Whitewater staff, and it's been eating at me, and I made a video about it, just going through and looking at this feature and what had happened since they opened up the ropes. Or not open up the ropes, since they put the lift line in, and then they have the double bamboo, and the gate is over here. Double boo. They did it. They put a double boo up. You can't get past it. Impenetrable force, right? So yeah, I kind of went out and I was like, it's a ticking time bomb, this thing. I was like, something's going to happen here. And for me, what used to happen is people would get off the lift, here was the corner, and they would actually, here's the corner, and they would come over here, and sometimes they would boot up into here, but other times they would just traverse out across into here. So this is where people were going before. And believe it or not, people used to traverse, I've seen this happen, they go all the way around to underneath Cougar's Claw, where there's literally 2 turns left. They're getting literally 2 turns, and they've traversed the entire thing. So there is no limit to what people will do to traverse. And I know that I'm preaching to the converted here. I know that you don't do this. But I'm saying, if you know someone who does, you can help them. You can. You can tell them that that is a waste of energy for 2 turns, that there are better ways to do it. So what's happening now is people are going up to here, to the edge of the bamboo. They're either walking a little bit, or they're traversing directly from the edge of the gate, or simply ducking a rope, and they're traversing right into the very bottom of Scobbs Knob. Now, this is one of the best backcountry runs anywhere that you can do, and now there is a traverse line going across the bottom of it. It's never not going to be there as long as the hill is open. I'm not saying it's not going to be there. I'm not saying to shame anyone. I'm just saying there's a better way, okay? So all these people are traversing, right? And the thing is we start thinking, oh, well, what if we like move it inbounds? What if this becomes inbounds? What if we do that? Guess what? People are just going to traverse further. They're just going to go to the line again and traverse more because they're addicted to it. They're like, I fucking love it. And I don't know why, but they do. And so here is where people will go next, is they're just going to go up here and they're going to start traversing. You're going to go across the whole thing. And there's a problem with this, right? There's a problem, and the problem is that the people traversing above the people underneath. And if there isn't a ski resort right there and it's just a backcountry area, everyone would be ski touring up and you'd be going up the ridge and we'd be skiing the run proper, right? But because people can do it, they just do the traverse. So I just do my best, not all the time, but whenever my ideal is to ski things from the top, as long as it's safe, because you're entering from the top. So those of you who are relatively new to this, there's a saying that traversing kills, right? And there's a reason why, and that's because people are traversing underneath you and you're going across a whole thing. This feature in Goat Slide here is nasty business. It is one of the worst avalanche slopes that I know of in the Whitewater Backcountry that I can think of. It has every red flag on it. And people, when I was out there, I went and looked up it. There was like 10 people in cotton hoodies traversing across the start zone above me, just like it was nothing. And so we just got to spread the gospel that you can go from the top. And a lot of these people didn't have any equipment. So this right here, this is the cotton hoodie booter locale that I call it. You have to have a cotton hoodie and you have to have a boom box, and you go to the booter there. And that booter is in the middle of all the different avalanche paths. And so anyone who's up here skiing, now basically they're like, oh, you're not supposed to ski on top of people, but now there's just people there. And that's just the way that it's gonna be. And so if you're gonna traverse out there, that's your business. I'm sorry, it's personal responsibility time, and it's your business, okay? If we're skiing it from the top and you're traversing and cutting the run out, you're putting yourself at risk, and that's the way it is. All right? Amen? Yeah, cool. Personal responsibility for things. We're gonna do our best on the top to not do it, but people need to know that you're just undercutting things and putting yourself at risk there, right? Okay, that is how big Goat Slide goes, right? So that's how big Goat Slide goes when it goes, okay? These features on the side of Scobbs Knob, these trees are actually the area where you get the most avalanches. It seems super weird and counterintuitive that in those trees it would be safer, but those trees produce the most. Okay, right on. I think that's all I gotta say about that. Thank you all. Cheers. Can't wait to see you all out there. Let's bring up Wishy. Yeah.
So on Sunday, when it's warm, I assume you're going to be out guiding, and if you're not, I'm going to assume that you are out guiding. What are some key things that you can do to keep yourself and your skiers safe? So what kind of terrain are you going to avoid? Where are you going to go? Why are you going to go there?
Okay. Yeah, so when it's cold out, right, it warms back up. I'm thinking about skiing to places I can get out of, right? So my first thought is, what if something happens and it's going to be freezing? So regardless, on Sunday night's going to crank back down to minus 22. I don't want to spend the night out. I'm thinking about skiing back inbounds. I'm thinking about bringing as much warm stuff as I can. I'm thinking about a microclimate, and that's what I'm doing. And I'm trying to ride in the sun. So I'm trying to think about sunny slopes to hang out in the sun as much as I can, as long as it's not melting down. And I'm sticking to supported terrain and taking it super mellow out there. Low angle, supported, and skiing back towards the highway. What are you doing?
I'm asking you.
Yeah.
So, not like what I heard, there's not a ton of avalanche concerns.
Yeah.
More the environmental factor is just being fucking cold.
Yeah, I don't know how the snowpack is going to react to this in the next few days. There is that anomalous avalanche that went on. I haven't been seeing a ton of activity and concerns, I'm not hanging it out there on Sunday, that's for sure. I'm not going into big avalanche terrain because I don't want to deal with it, because I don't want to have anything happen at all. I'm keeping it mellow, I'm keeping it simple, supported low angle terrain, skiing back to areas I can get out of. Yeah.
Nice work, Judson. Thank you. So I'm going to enter my section of the talk. I just want to say it's always amazing to stand up here and see everybody that is coming and supporting and building this community, and really like just getting behind this initiative that was created 5 years ago. And it's it makes us all feel really, really good, and I hope everybody's really starting to gain a lot out of all the talks and the videos, and that we are actually really helping people stay safe. So thank you, and thank you for being here. So let's get rid of the stigma. We're talking about avalanches and avalanche involvements, right? And accidents happen, and they happen to everybody. None of us are immune. And State of the Snowpack wants to encourage everyone here to be non-judgmental. So when people are involved in incidents, things go wrong, we do our best to look through the microscope, analyze, try to see the things that did go wrong and the reasons that they happened, so that we can move forward and stay safe the next time and get that message out. But if people don't report and they don't, a lot of times people want to keep it hidden, and that it doesn't help the community. And as hard as it is, I encourage everybody, like the Mountain Information Network on AvCan is a wonderful thing for us to go to, for all of us to see what's happening. So please use the MINs, bring it to our attention from a professional standpoint. So the more information we have, the more we can break down incidents, and the more that we can destigmatize and help keep everybody safer. And again, so only by sharing and being open about our experiences can we help each other learn, grow, and stay safe in the backcountry. And obviously, we all love to ski POW, but it does come with inherent risk because we are playing in a little bit of a dangerous environment. So I want to share a story just to destigmatize and join the group. But I want everybody here to raise your hand if you've ever been involved in an avalanche, been buried, been carried, anything. So it's a number of people in this room that it's happened to. This person down here in the snow is me. January 2nd, 2015, and it was pretty scary business when it happened. I was in Catch Basin up at Whitewater, so in one of our controlled avalanche areas, and I was doing control work in the lower fan features there. I triggered a size 2 with crowns up to 80 centimeters. I was fully buried except for my arms sticking out of the snow. And including myself on the slope, there were the person behind me and the person guarding on the line, that we were all making these decisions. There was over 50 years of avalanche experience on that slope. And it still happened. We don't have all the answers, and we have biases, and we have sometimes we don't get it right, and when we don't get it right, these are the consequences. So it's none of us are impervious to this. It can happen, and I want everybody to realize that it can happen to you. And once you do realize that, then you can start to move forward in the avalanche world and try to do everything you can to minimize those hazards and to bring the chances of this happening down. So I just really wanted to share that story. I know Mike's going to share a story with us in a little bit as well. But, you know, it can happen to all of us. And before I discuss the next incident, I just want to say, let's all be kind. Let's be kind to each other, you know? This avalanche I'm going to discuss happened only 5 days ago. And it's a traumatic incident when you're involved in something like this. And I want to ensure that we're all sensitive to the feelings of the people who are involved, because it's, you know, it's a serious thing, and it takes some time to get past it and ask the questions and hopefully move back to going back out into the backcountry and ski and POW again. And one thing I really want to reiterate is that this group was prepared. All the things that Judson just talked about, they had all the appropriate gear. They've all taken training courses. They followed their daily process. And, you know, when the day was coming to an end, they unfortunately hit the wrong spot on the slope, and that this could happen to any of us. And I was really fortunate to be able to speak to one of the people that was involved in this today. And I made sure I thanked that person for trusting me to tell at least a small part of this story to try help educate all of you. And I got some really interesting insights and, you know, help all of us have some better understanding on what we need to do to stay safe. So, January 6th, 2024, goat slide. The avalanche occurred just after 3 o'clock sometime. It's a south-southwest aspect, about 50 meters is where it was triggered. We called it a size 2.5 avalanche. It was 20 to 40 centimeters deep, 100 meters wide, running 240 meters. So it's a sizable avalanche. And, you know, this is the crown line that came all the way down here from up there. And it was triggered really high up here in the slope. When it was triggered, it was the first skier in. And again, I'm going to the group that skied this were skiing at one at a time. They'd followed their daily process. They'd made an analysis, and you know, over the course of the day, they ended up in the wrong spot. Maybe a little bit farther skiers left than they wanted to be. You know, there's different factors that lead to all kinds of these things, and hit a spot which was, you know, the wrong place. A little bit thin, and cross-loaded slope had loaded in there, and this person went for a ride through all these trees. This picture is taken by Douglas Noblet, our forecasting supervisor, and I believe this picture would have been taken very close to the spot where the person ended up, and they ended up on top of the snow, fortunately. So they were not buried again, but they went for a ride through all these trees and these cliff features, and this person sustained some very serious injuries. So a response by Whitewater Ski Patrol, because it happened late in the day, and I just want to remind people, backcountry, you know, we're adjacent. The boundary is right there to all this beautiful terrain we have at Whitewater. But it is technically the responsibility of Nelson Search and Rescue, which is a wonderful volunteer organization that these people put themselves out there and train and practice to go out, and they do amazing work. So quick shout out to NSAR. Been very fortunate to have the opportunity to work with a lot of them at Whitewater and participate in a lot of training, and they're an amazing group of people, and thank you for what you do. So Whitewater Patrol responded because we're immediately adjacent to the boundary. This avalanche occurred only probably 150 meters max from our ski area boundary, so we were able to move on to the slope and Nelson Search and Rescue was called, but because it was getting so late in the day and we did have the resources, it defaulted to Whitewater Ski Patrol. Response included a visual sweep, a reco search. So if people are unfamiliar, those little chips you see on your pants sometimes, they put them in your boots. It's a reco system, and it's like a sonar system basically, where you can take a machine onto the slope and it will rebound if you hit one of these reco chip targets or metal. Not a perfect world, but when you practice with them, they can get reasonable, and we try to practice with them reasonably frequently, because there is always the opportunity, either inbounds or just adjacent to our boundary, that we'll have to search for somebody that does not have an avalanche transceiver on them. So we searched with a reco, visual sweep of the surface, and transceiver search. And there were reports of a bunch of people on that slope that had been skiing it through the day. It's very, very difficult, challenging, and many guests of Whitewater had been using that area and did not have avalanche gear with them. You know, just traversing out like Judson was just talking about, Raven chair, you know, you duck a rope and you're on your way. The patient was packaged and brought down to BC Ambulance, and that patient is now recovering, and looks like their physical injuries are going to be okay, which makes all of us feel a whole lot better. So what did this thing fail on? The slope had been cross-loaded by significant wind overnight and during the day. So we had these honking winds, you know, like we registered up to 80-kilometer-an-hour winds on our anemometer up at the Raven chair. We have one right at the top where people unload. And so that's southwest's our typical loading, so it would have been a typical loading pattern. Goats is actually a windward slope to that, but the thing that happens is when it comes into the basin, it starts to swirl, and then it cross-loads features. So that top of that slope ends up getting a whole bunch of loading, even though you think that snow is going to get stripped off it. It does not. It actually swirls around, and it comes across, and it cross-loads. Cross-loads from both sides, and, you know, like Judson was saying, I hope we don't get these east winds, because east winds are terrible, and they'll cross-load it in there from the other direction. So, you know, the fact that it's a windward slope, it doesn't mean it's not getting loaded. So this was the first significant snowfall in many weeks. So here we are on Thursday. It only started snowing on Friday night. You know, it hasn't been snowing for very long. All of a sudden, the picture totally changed, because you know, you think of where we were last Thursday, and if you were up at Whitewater, things were looking pretty bleak. You know, we were all crossing our fingers and really hoping that this storm materialized, and thankfully it did, because it was a different world there 5-6 days ago than it is today. We suspect that this avalanche, failed on preserved stellars above a melt freeze temperature crust from late December. So Judd was talking about these crusts. South aspects gets a little more challenging. We have so many crusts in there. We were getting these inversions, you know, where you're getting periods of sun. We had warm temperatures. Temperature came up, formed a crust. Anyway, the storm stove fell on top of it. And the preserved stellars Judd's talking about very well may have been the same thing, whether it's in the middle or not, but on top of that crust. We did have some tiny little surface hoar on one of those crusts, but can't confirm. They didn't find that surface hoar, but they definitely found the preserved stellars. And they got a compression test easy. I don't know if you can see. So anybody who doesn't know, cut a 30 by 30 column, put your shovel on top. You know, it's a really exact science. You hit it with your wrist, you hit it from the elbow 10 times, and then you hit it from the shoulder 10 times. And You know, when I'm hitting it versus Wendy, one of our forecasters, is hitting it, might be a little bit different, but we do our best to standardize it so that all of us can go out there and do a compression test and have a general idea of if one of these layers is going to fail, right? So we got a compression test 3 and a compression test 12, both down 40 centimeters on those preserved stellars, size 2 to 3. Size 2 to 3 are big stellars. Those are beautiful snowflakes falling from the sky, but they're big, and like Judson said, bigger a crystal is, they stay in the snowpack and they can cause problems when they're there. So it looks like this avalanche was initiated in a thinner spot, so which tends to be the case. You know, you can kind of affect layers where it's rocky or maybe a little bit more faceted. And of note, across the valley, there was a size 2, 2.5 in Cougar's Claw, a size 2 skiers remote from our control team in Powder Fields. It's above our permanent closure in Catch Basin. And several 1.5 with explosives control in Upper Powder Keg Bowl, and another skier triggered 1.5 and 5 mile on the same day. And Judson brought up a picture of that 1.5 that came out of 5 mile. So not a lot of snow, things were dry, all of a sudden it chacked, and then it got windy, and then something woke up, and here we go. So concerns and takeaways. First of all, I'm going to point out this picture. This is a size 3.5 avalanche in Goat Slide. This slope is capable of producing devastating avalanches. This slope is no joke. I've seen this thing go huge. It rips out trees. It's a scary place to be, and it's not a place you want to be at all in elevated hazard. It's just, and as you move farther this way, you go into goat trees, which is safer, but it's definitely, you're in it when you're out there. You see this crown right here. That crown was over 2 meters. And this avalanche here, I'll just tell you quickly about it, was in 2015, in the end of January. And that year, ironically, I was looking, and it was the 15th of December, and I have a picture when I was looking for the picture of this, of me mountain biking up Marsden Road. And I was at 5 kilometers on Marsden Road, and my picture, I'm like, where's the snow? Because there was no snow that year, and it started snowing earlier than it did this year. But inherently, you get long periods of drought, and then all of a sudden it starts to snow, and things get funky and weird, and you can end up with avalanche problems. So let's hope we don't end up with a nasty one this year. So earlier in the day on January 6th, when the avalanche we're talking about now was triggered, there were a steady stream of people skiing below or through the same path that was triggered at 3 p.m. Steady stream. Getting off the Raven, heading out. People are stoked. People are skiing pow. That's what they want to do. It's finally, we're seeing a bit of a turnaround, so away they go. I hate to put a number on things because I don't know, but I've spent a bunch of time out there doing some educational missions, and I would say, and you can help me, Wendy, Dougie, you guys, that probably 90% of the people you see out there don't have gear on. They're not getting off the chair with a backpack. Don't have an avalanche transceiver. They're going there. They're traversing across, and they're skiing fall line. And I don't think I'm wrong on that estimation. It's so easily accessible, and people are out there getting after it, and they do not, even if they're avalanche trained, they do not have the appropriate gear with them. Without question, there are. Yeah, let's go the people that are doing it right. That's awesome. I'm with you 100%. So the people doing good. A lot. So just this avalanche obliterated two of the main traverse lines Judson was talking about, ran across where people were traversing across. Those traverse lines no longer visible because it was all covered in avalanche debris. Edge of the debris, 120, 150 meters away from the ski area boundary. And this incident, I mean, I'm not going to say this incident wasn't horrific. You know, people were involved, and these are very serious, life-changing events. But had a bunch of people with no avalanche gear been on that slope below where these people were, it turns into a whole other level. And I just want to, you know, given that, kind of give a shout out to our ski patrol and our whole ski community, because Lake Tahoe just went through a pretty tragic incident. You know, somebody passed away skiing in the Palisades, and you know, an incredible response by a whole bunch of ski patrol team, resort staff, and members of public to go out there and search debris and pull 3 people to safety and make sure that the slope was clear. But we're all a community. I don't care if you're, you know, if you're in Japan, if you're here, if you're in Australia at a resort, wherever you are, a ski patrol community, the whole ski community, snowboard community, where I think we can all relate to that and feel for it. So here's to them, and I hope they can get some healing. So, responsibility for safety, and I think Judson touched on it as well. When you're in the backcountry, it's not, you don't only have a responsibility for yourself, but you do have a responsibility for others. If you're traversing over, you see someone, you know, you always want to make sure that you're doing the appropriate things to keep other people safe as well, because your actions can put other people in harm. So please pay attention and realize it's not just about you, but it's about all of us together, right? Like, we all want to do the things out there that make sure that we're all going to come home every night, because that, in the end, realistically, that's the most important thing. Okay, so skiing and riding the best POW you can find is not a decision-making strategy. Okay, quite honestly, because it's good there doesn't mean that that's your decision to go there. You know, like, there's a lot of things between here and where the good POW is that we should all be thinking about, okay? That we should make sure that, and we're going to get into some red flags here, but, you know, like, it's like, if you want to get out there and get after it, make sure that the people that you're with are, you know, practiced and trained, or, you know, like, and have the appropriate gear, and that these things are absolutely critical with the backcountry. So, you know what? And the thing is, I get it, right? I love skiing POW. It's probably my favorite thing to do in the world, you know? When we're out there the last few days and you got snow blowing over your head and, you know, your face is cold and you're like, wow, it's back, and it's so great. But it's not great if something happens out there and, you know, POW becomes very last in line. If you're trying to dig out one of your friends, or you're trying to, you know, deal with any sort of an incident. So let's, you know, keep working as hard as we can so that we're all going to be safe. So I want to remind everybody, backcountry is backcountry. I've stood up here and I've said it before. I never use the term slack country, because there's nothing slack about it. You know, when you cross a boundary, you are in the backcountry and it is not slack. Side country, yeah, it's the same thing. You know, I thought about this today, and it's like, well, if that slope, if Goat Slide, with as many people getting off a chair and just traversing into it, was in the backcountry and, you know, you were touring out there, how many people would just traverse right across that slope and then ski fall line where they saw fit? I would hope nobody would, because you'd have very, very careful analysis. You'd look, you'd think, wow, big avalanche slope, it's capable of producing so much. And, you know, we're gonna wait for the right conditions before we step out onto a slope like that. And if you hit a slope like that in the right conditions, don't get me wrong, Judson talked about Jans. I skied Jans from the top. I've only skied it from the top 2 times. And the times I did was out of this fucking world. But, you know, like I've been working at Whitewater for 23 years, and that's how many times I've skied Jans from the top. And it takes me a whole lot before I feel confident diving into it. But just so you know, that's, it's a tricky place. So have your gear, get training, practice, follow your daily process, and stay safe and shred some epic snow and come home safe. So thank you, and I'm really, really glad. Like I say, I'm fortunate to be able to talk about that incident, and I'm really glad that those people are okay and that we can all learn something here today. So let's come together as a community and let's keep ourselves safe and remember those all the points, and just don't traverse out there with no gear, please. Thank you.
Alrighty, everyone, we're going to have a little intermission at the moment. Actually, does anyone have any information about avalanches to share? Anyone at the time being? Alrighty. I'll go over tonight's takeaways. So winter has arrived. Be prepared for a cold snap that's coming up. There are layers lurking we're unsure about. Pay close attention to the winds in the next while. The snowpack is highly variable depending on aspect and elevation. And we are dealing with a new situation with goat slides and area boundaries. So let's work as a community to make it safe. And so during this intermission, I just want to note we have prizes. So we finally have prizes now. And so we're going to be selling tickets. So it's $5 for 1, $20 for 5 tickets. And we have a night at the Savoy Hotel that's going up, which is going to be pretty nice and swanky. We got 2 goggles from Anon. Anon has jumped on board for us. So they're supplying some goggles. And we got a little package from Village Ski Hut. And we also have some hats that we're going to throw into the draw. So feel free to come over by the table. We have a QR code so you can donate that way, or if you have cash, go in that way. And then since it's cold, we got some toques coming up. So, whoo! And then we got another one coming this way. And we got a beautiful touring hat. So, and let's go way in this corner. Oh, off the wall. And as it's getting cold, we have fleece hats. They're super beautiful. I think it's $25 for a beanie, $30 for a hat. So come on over, see us. Let's take about 15, 20 minutes and go get yourself a drink, tip your bartenders, but please help us out. So come buy some tickets. And let's get, and then I'll be speaking about red flags in 20 minutes. Stick around for that. this talk. This one's something where you want to kind of take it in, listen to all these other signs. Like, I always like to say, like, the mountains speak and we just need to listen. So once I kind of get into my talk, I'll talk about this incident. This is in the San Juans for myself. And was a pretty close call. You can kind of see my track cruising down. And then as I was about halfway down the slope, I felt the snow completely change and become isothermal. And actually have a GoPro video footage of this. And once I got closer to the choke, the snow started to just slide away from underneath me. And yeah, it was becoming quite a close call when you have like a cliff below you, but just kind of soak in that image. And I'll talk about it once we get a little bit more into my talk here. So before we kick it off, what are red flags? And like, red flags can come in many different forms, but first I'm going to talk about snow. And so when you're out there, I always like to say you want to be a detective. Like when you're out there, get the information from the avalanche bulletin, get the weather forecast, and start relating it to the terrain that you're out there in. So before, like, when you're driving up, before I even get out of the car sometimes, I've acknowledged red flags before I even hit the snow. And that's like just when I'm driving up. Do I see any recent avalanches? Are those avalanches in correlation to the terrain that I want to ride? What about winds? Pay attention, like, do you see winds at ridgetop? Do you see trees swaying? And then when you're out there, pay attention while you're touring. Are you getting whoops? Like where the ground just feels like, it almost feels like a little slight bit of thunder in the background. And you're walking on the terrain, you can feel like the snowpack's kind of settling underneath you. And then with heavy precipitation, like we just have received, when you get a heavy bit of snowfall or rainfall, and what that does to the snowpack. The snowpack doesn't like stress. So when you bring in a heavy factor like wind or precipitation, temperatures, sun effect, that's when you get changes within the snow. And then so you also want to pay attention in rapid rise in temperatures and when we have persistent weak layers kind of hiding in the snowpack there. So first topic, let's talk about recent avalanches. And like I was kind of saying before, you always want to be a detective. You want to go out there, you want to read the avalanche bulletin in the morning, take note if avalanche have been recorded, and if they have been recorded, when did they occur? So get a kind of a time profile on that. What aspect, what elevation, the depth of the avalanche, and the avalanche problem that occurred. Was it a storm slab? Was it a wind slab? You know, was it a persistent weak layer? Kind of get that information before you even head out the door. Get to know what the size of the avalanche is. Like what kind of avalanches are being produced at the moment. And then how many avalanches are being reported? Is it isolated? Or we just find avalanches on just like certain specific terrain features? Or are we seeing like a wide spread of avalanches? Like, so take that all into account before you head into the field. Then you want to seek information. So while you're driving up to the ski area, just gather as much as you can. Do you see any signs of activity? Talk to patrollers. Like patrollers are out there, they're bombing, they're ski cutting, they have a lot of information. So use them as a resource. Talk to local guides and then get as much, just kind of get all that information that you can get out. And then pay attention if ski areas or highways are closed and are being bombed. And then gather as much information as possible and relate it to the terrain and aspect and the elevation that you plan to recreate in. And just to kind of know, I forgot to kind of introduce myself as well. So I've been ski touring or splitboarding for about 16 years, and I'm still learning. Every single winter, it's always different. There's always something to learn from. And I'm also now become a guide and an avalanche educationer. And like I said, I'm always learning. And that's what I love about this, is that you're always using your brain. And then take note of whoops or cracking. Actually, when I was ski touring today, I was feeling whoops. I was getting cracking, and I was trying to record it. But guess what? It's really hard to actually record whoops. All I could hear was just the sound of my pants or my poles, and I'm just like, I just want to record the sound of a whoomp. So with whoops, that's for you to listen to the snowpack. The snowpack is speaking to you. So while breaking trail, does it feel like the snowpack is making whoops, or do you feel like hollow like drum sounds, or do you feel like the snowpack is settling underneath you? It almost feels like a slight little like micro drop as you're touring. You feel like a poof, and like maybe little trees might like sway a little bit. And if you're following an already broken skin track, take that time to step off of the skin track and walk. Get that information yourself. Break your own for a little while. Do you feel instabilities? Sometimes we get our heads so focused and we're just walking up a trail and we don't pay attention to all these little subtle clues that might be presentable if you just take that time to just step off. Whoops is a sign of the snowpack settling. There's a weak layer in the snowpack with a stronger layer over top. Applying your or your group's weight squishes out that weak layer and causing the snowpack to settle. Use your pole as well while you're touring. Poke it. Pull out your probe. And then while you're skinning, feel out those weak layers. Do you feel hollow? Do you feel air gaps in the snowpack? Like, take note of that. And then with cracking, do you notice any cracking while breaking trail? And then a really key information you can take is when you're walking, you see like little slight pillows, like little tiny micro features. Use that to relate it to a big picture. Step onto pillows that resemble convexities to notice signs of instabilities or on simple micro features. You can see signs of instabilities on these features, and you're more likely to see it on bigger terrain features. So if you just take these little tiny micros, you can be like, if I'm seeing it here, I'm definitely going to see it up there on bigger terrain. And now let's talk about recent wind loading. So wind loading is kind of fine, like the sneaky one, because we're always watching for storms, we're keeping track of persistent weak layers, but if we just slightly forget about wind and what it's doing overnight, we might go out into the field and totally be spooked or surprised about a wind slab. So watch the wind speed, watch the direction, and then I have a little question. So if the snow is falling at like 2 centimeters an hour, how much do you think can be transported? So at like what rate? Like, do you think maybe 2 times? Like, shout out some answers. What does everyone think? 5, 10, 3, 10, 4. And Kyle's got it, 10 times. So think about that. If the snow is falling 2 centimeters an hour and we have good, about like 25, 40 kilometer winds, that now on the leeward slope, it could be up to 20 centimeters is being transported over to that other side. So keep that in mind. You're like, so yeah, upwards of 10 times, wind can transport snow from 3 to 10 times as much as the rate falling from the sky. Snow needs to be loose, and that's how it can be transported. Winds begin moving snow at 15 kilometers an hour, but winds from 20 to 25 kilometers an hour promote wind loading. And after 45 to 50 kilometers an hour, the snow begins to sublimate and turn to a gas and go back into the atmosphere. So we actually lose our snow. So in the morning, as you look over the overnight winds and weather stations and forecasted weather, take note of the direction and the speed of the wind. Remember to always look for signs of wind effect at the start and during your day. Do you see the trees swaying? Have the trees lost their snow? Maybe signs of tree bombs. As you're touring up, you can see like the snow has been shedding off the trees. Do you see branches, needles, or tree debris on the surface? Do you see snow blowing at ridgetop? And have cornices or windlaps formed recently? So kind of like, before I show you a video, so like each one of these, I have like with wind loading, new snow, and rapid rise in temperatures. I have my own personal experiences with GoPro footage of when something happened to me or my friend as well. And so always pay attention to the winds every day, and then all that is needed is this loose snow to be transported. And then so earlier this year, so think about it, like early November, me and my buddy set off pretty much the first avalanche in the Kootenays when most people aren't even skiing yet. this is early November, and we already caused a slide. So this is our 4th run on this slope. And for the first little while, we're like ski cutting everything, not seeing anything to go. And this is the last run of the day. Guess what? We totally let our guards down. We're just like, we're not seeing anything. It's good to go. Let's just keep shredding this bowl. And let's see. And then I'll play this here. So this is my buddy Corby's video. I don't think there's sound at all, but you can just keep the sound in your head here. And then that all just released right in front of them. Just this like little wind-loaded pocket. So like the whole time we're like, this is really good shredding. Then he enters into it, and then he just lost all of his snow. And it was about a size 2 avalanche on this. It ran about 100 meters and was a depth of 1 meter. This is November of this year. Oh, how do I get off this? There we go. And now let's talk about recent snowfall, rainfall. Has there been snowfall or rapid loading? So something to kind of take a note before you go into the backcountry is, has like 15 to 20 plus centimeters fallen in the last 24 hours? What about 2 centimeters plus an hour for several hours can start building up storm slabs? And then new snow needs at least 24 hours to begin to bond and heal with the previous snowpack. So at least 24 hours before it starts beginning to do that cycle. And now I'll go into this little video of myself here. So this is myself in the Sierra Nevadas. I was in Tahoe and riding this line called the Crescent Moon Couloir. And it just snowed probably like 20, 30 centimeters. And this line actually, I remember watching this film called My Own 2 Feet, and they're like, okay, now we're going to go for like 2 days with Jeremy Jones and go like shred these lines. And one of them was this line. This is the Crescent Moon Couloir. And I was like, I saw it, and I was like, oh man, this is a line of like looked in videos, like I'm so stoked to go like shred it. And we boot packed up it, and as I was boot packing up it, I saw shooting cracks. And I was like, okay, I see these cracks, I'm taking note of it. And so right there, we have 2 red flags. I have new snow, shooting cracks, and I got up there, and I was like chatting with my buddy, and I'm just like, okay, like when I drop into this, I'm gonna ski cut across and release everything. And then guess what? I got like Kodak Surge, and I dropped in, and I said, you know what? I'm just gonna ride this whole thing. And it did not pan out for me. I've never shown this video to someone, and now I'm going to show it to all of you. Gave my shot, you know, almost stoked. And I'm like, woo, dropping in like super, yeah. And then right about there's a crack that just started. So now the snow is all starting to spider web around me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep on going. And then you can see right there, it all just cracked. And now, so with this line, there's actually a Y. And in my head, I was just like, I know if I boot out right, I could exit out. But when I look at this, I'm like, if I went to the left and just got to that high point, I probably would have gone out of this. But instead, the snow decided to do something else with me. And luckily, I stayed on the surface, and with like being in a chute, as soon as I hit the fan, it was able to spread out wide. But I was definitely pissed off with myself after this because I knew better. I knew I should have ski cut it and let it go. But GoPros, what GoPros can do to you sometimes where you're just like, I just want to ski this whole thing. And it did not pan out for me. Oh, yeah, no problem. Happy to share. That's what this is all about. It's about being as a community to like share these topics. Like, I feel like avalanches are a taboo subject, and we like to not talk about them. But I feel like, as Wishy was kind of saying, and Judson, like we all learn from our own. I guess yeah, you can call them mistakes, but like being able to share about it allows people to grow, and this is how we grow as a community. And now another big one is when we have rapid rise in temperature. And it doesn't need to be in the positives to have temperatures affect the snowpack. So signs of temperature rise is like when you start seeing like snowballing, or when you see like the old cinnamon roll coming down. Trees are shedding snow, they're dripping, or like you put your hand in the snowpack and the upper snowpack is moist. Be mindful of spikes in temperatures in the day. Use time, aspects, and terrain and temperature rises. Caution when a storm starts cold and finishes warm. Rise in temperatures can happen anytime during the ski season, but often more seen in the spring. And then caution in spring as we go through melt-free cycles and spring diurnals, and timing is very crucial in that. And then as one big thing with rapid rise in temperature is give cornices a lot of respect. Watch for the sun input on hotter days. And so, as I was kind of talking with the very first slide, we had that like face where I was like skiing on it. So I decided, I'm in the San Juans in Colorado, and I decided to play with chance in a way. I'm solo as well, so I don't have anyone with me. And I saw this face when I was driving to Durango, and then I came back and I was just like looked at it. This is on, what's the Engineer Peak, and I saw this like beautiful panel that goes into like this chute. I was like, oh, I really want to ride this. And when I toured, disorientated, and then kind of lost a bit of time. So when I finally got onto the slope, it had already been baked in the sun. So I was like, all right, not time to ride this. So I decided to ride the south aspect and then the west aspect. And in my mind, I was just like, what if I came back late in the day and maybe it will start locking up and I can ride this line. So I went up, and this is probably closer to like 4, like this is April. So I think it's like 4, maybe like 5 p.m. Just when the sun is like, was it beginning to set? I forget. Anyways, around like, late afternoon. And so I dropped in and started making some turns. It was like really good like corn snow for like first like 3 or 4 turns. And then as like making my way down the slope, I felt it completely change. And the snow become very isothermic and literally just wanted to like rinse off from my feet. This one is like a fairly, like, it was a manageable one, but just picture that like all underneath me is pretty much cliff. And so there's only one like little shooty kind of thing, and I'll play the video and then kind of explain the rest. And so like these turns were feeling really good. And then this is when it began to start changing on me, and I'm like, I don't feel comfortable anymore. And so I decided to get like a little close to the rock here. But the more right I went out, it was just, that's all cliff below me. And so I know I have to go over to the left-hand side to be where I wanted to go. And then the snow was just feeling very very wet and loose. And so I was very cautious with just staying as close to rocks as I possibly could. Even though those are weakness points, I knew like I'd rather be closer to something where I know the snowpack's low. And then the snow would just start drifting away. And then, so that's still like just cliff below me. And it just would ramp off of there, losing all my snow now. Now I'm literally just out this line. And I'm like, I am in not a place. You can see the snow all the way down to the bottom now. And I'm like, okay. And then anytime I made movement, it's literally just going right down the rock. And I'm like, I don't like where I want to be. So how I managed this was I just kept on like getting over to like those rocks, and I was able to ride that sliver. But like once I got into the chute, like all the snow was gone from it, and I'm solo. So it's actually kind of, you know, sometimes in those perspectives, you're like, I'm really happy no one else is following me on that. But just to kind of bring them into the hazard. But if I screwed up, no one would have known. And then with persistent weak layers. So persistent weak layers take weeks to months to heal and bond in the snowpack. So you always want to keep track of them, as like Judson was like talking about. And then, so throughout the whole winter season, always keep note of them. Look for them. Take note on results in the avalanche bulletin on these layers. So like when you're reading the avalanche bulletin, check to see if like within like min reports or within the report itself, if that layer is dormant, is it developing, or is it active? And to make sure to test these layers when dramatic change has occurred. So when we have heavy precip, so a good loading from snow or rain, when we have wind, temperature changes, or when we have strong sun input. And then, so those are all snow. And then we also have to take note of our own mental red flags. So always check in with yourself and your group. There's more than just snow to keep in touch with. Make sure at the start of every tour and within the day as you're touring with your group, just see where everyone's mindset is at. You know, check in with your group. Maybe someone has lost a family member, maybe someone has lost a friend, or maybe a pet. Or maybe just going through like, you know, there's so many different reasons. Like it could be like financial troubles. It could be having a bad day or just not mentally there. If your partners or yourself is in that, this is when you have to dial it back and just keep to something simple and not the time to be, you know, getting after it. And then gear troubles. If someone in the group is having a gear malfunction, and this is maybe take it as a sign from like the universe telling you that maybe you should alternate plans. And depending on how the repair goes or how much time is taken away from fixing it. And the big one is timing. Timing in the mountains is crucial, and pay attention to the clock. Begin to dial it back or start heading home when you have like at least 2 hours or less of daytime, because honestly, if you like got an injury and when it's so close to dark, it's quite risky business. I have personal experience of this, like out in Kootenay Pass on the banana chute, I spent 16 hours out in the backcountry when my buddy broke his leg at 4 p.m. Could not get any rescue, so had to build a snow cave, build a fire. He had a compound fracture with his tib fib, so open wound, sticking out, and yeah, had to spend 16 hours with him. Like, so this is when you have to kind of mentally like, is it worth the risk? Should we push it? You know. So I always like to say, like, take your day, like, have like the apex of your day, like right mid-time, and then by the end of your day, start down back and ride in pretty relative simple terrain. And then be honest. This is the biggest one. The biggest take home when going into the mountains is be honest with yourself and the group. Everyone has a voice. Like the great John Buffrey always says, we're all just souls in the mountains. And like, it doesn't matter your experience or how many years you've been in the backcountry. We're all just souls in the mountains. So just make sure that your objectives work with everyone. Is everyone in the group happy with the risk tolerance? And like the big thing, don't follow tracks. If you have no idea where they're going, like why follow it? Like research before you go out for the day and have a plan with backup plans. And make sure someone knows outside, like so like back at home, back in town, where you're going and when you plan to contact them. And I'm going to take another note on that, or say it again, but everyone has a voice in the mountains. Like, doesn't matter your experience in the group. Everyone has a voice. And just to kind of finish it off, so be a detective. Look for flags. Look for red flags, sorry. When you enter the mountains, know the forecast, know where you're going, and have a plan, and always have your head on a swivel, scoping out everything. Consistently take in information. Be ready to change plans if Mother Nature speaks. She'll tell you if it's safe or not to be in the backcountry. You cannot learn it all in a couple of winters. Be humble, be aware, and enjoy the beauty of it. No one will remember the line you pushed for. This is like a big one. Like, I've snowboarded over 5 continents, and I can honestly say no one cares about the lines you're really riding or what you're going to what you're pushing for. So like, you gotta check in with yourself. It's like worth the risk. Like, there's some lines I don't even remember that I do anymore. Like, it's just like, it's all about the experience and the people that you're out there in the mountains with. And so at the end of the day, all that matters is coming home. And now we'll kick off a good old raffle. And then we have the band. What's the band? Yeah, Jack. You play. Oh, we got Mark here. Mark, oh. What? 3 Bird Stone will be kicking off after this. But first, let's do a little raffle time. Let's start off with a hat. Let's start with some hat. All right, for the atomic hat, we got 007. Who's got 007? And then we got a sweet protection toque here. Yeah, so these first couple prizes are from Village Ski Hut. Very stoked for them to, and we got, 27 in the house. Who's got 27? 27. You just got yourself a toque. 27? Anyone? So any of our guide people here, we have a harness here for doing some rescues, and you have to lower someone. You have a rope and all that stuff. So it'll be a nice little diaper harness to put someone in. And this number goes to 43. 43. Just got yourself a diaper harness. Yep, come on over. And then next, we got a coffee mug from... This is from Village Ski Hut, and it's someone. Anyways, let me pull out what we got here.
What are you going for now?
This one. The dinosaur mug. Dinosaur. 51. Who likes hot beverages? 51 does. 51. And now Anon has been a great supporter for us. They've sent out some goggles. Yep. So we got a pair of Anon here. The for number 21. Oh, you're the perfect person for those. And then we have another pair of Anons, a pair of M3s here. Going to 37. 37. Who's got 7? There you go. He's got new gogs. He's going to be a happy man. And then we have a lovely night from the Savoy. Very nice, swanky hotel room for you. Little home retreat. Number 11. Lucky 11. There he goes. Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you for an amazing night. Thanks for coming out. And keep contributing. And we'll catch you February 15th. February 15th will be our next State of the Snowpack.
Stay safe, everybody. Welcome. Three Bird Night. These guys are awesome. Sorry, Three Bird Stone. Come on up, Jack. Get them going.